Tonight, from mentor to political enemy, Nicola Sturgeon on her relationship with the late Alex Salmond and how she still misses him in some way.
I started crying on the phone and I just was hit by this wave of grief. And it was complicated because obviously we weren't just no longer friends, we were political enemies.
Also tonight, remembering the Shetland bus, the new memorial honouring the vital sea link between Shetland and occupied Norway during the Second World War. And presidential approval. Donald Trump congratulates winner Grant Forrest after securing a DP World Golf title on his Aberdeenshire course.
We all watched you play. We waited we just came out and won a round of golf. What 3 rounds of brilliant golf.
I'm Andrea Breimer. This is the STV News at 6, live from Aberdeen. Hello, good evening. For more than 8 years, she was Scotland's First Minister. Now, Nicola Sturgeon has been reflecting on her time in office, as well as rumours around her personal life and the breakdown in her relationship with Alex Salmond. In her only broadcast interview to be aired on STV this evening, she admits she should have paused gender reform legislation following a backlash. A warning there is flash photography in this package from our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
And again down here, please, sir.
Nicola Sturgeon describes her relationship with Alex Salmond as one of the most successful partnerships in modern British politics. It came to an abrupt end when allegations of sexual misconduct against him emerged in 2018. However, she says the death of her former mentor brought a mix of emotions.
I still miss him in some way, the person that I used to know and the relationship we used to have, but I thought I had made my peace with it, that I'd got to a point where I felt nothing. And then I got a call to tell me that Alex Salmond had died. And I started crying on the phone and I just was hit by this wave of grief.
The former First Minister describes her arrest during the police investigation into SNP finances as the worst day of her life. She was later cleared, but her husband, Peter Murrell, from whom she is now separated, faces charges of embezzlement. Ms Sturgeon also speaks about the toxic debate around gender reform. Legislation, she admits, she should have handled differently.
I should have said, right, OK, let's pause. Let's take a step back, and because I fervently believe that the rights of women and the interests of trans people are not irreconcilable at all.
She was asked once again whether she considers the transgender rapist Isla Bryson male or female.
Anybody who commits the most heinous male crime against women probably forfeits the right to be, the gender of their choice.
They forfeit to be the gender of their choice. That's quite. I mean, this actually goes to the heart of the difficulty around this.
That probably was not the best phrase to use.
They forfeit their right to be the gender of their choice.
If you rape a woman, then I think you probably, the debate about whether they should be called a woman or not, probably.
Well, why don't you simply say then Isla Bryson is a biological male?
They are a biological male, but that's about whether it gets back into the self-ID thing. I should have been much more straightforward. I wasn't. But that's because of the debate. We'd lost all sense of rationality in this debate. I'm partly responsible for that.
Following speculation around her own personal life, she reveals she has never considered her own sexuality to be binary.
Might we see you in a relationship with a woman?
I'm just out of a marriage, so I'm not rushing into a relationship with anyone anytime soon. I'm enjoying being my own person for a while.
But not ruling it out?
I'm not contemplating, sort of anything of that nature.
Her remarks on gender reforms have provoked anger among those who raised concerns at the time.
If she has now belatedly seen the light, big if, I wonder if she will accept that she owes an apology to the women she characterised as transphobes, misogynists, homophobes, racists, simply for questioning a policy which she now accepts should have been questioned.
I think she's being very self-effacing and reflecting on what she could have done differently, and I think that's the mark of a good leader, actually, and somebody who's able to go back and say, well, perhaps things could or should have been done differently.
Political opponents also believe her comments are too little too late.
I don't think the women of Scotland who fought strenuously to defend their hard-won rights will be at all comforted or convinced by Nicola Sturgeon's apparent change of heart. The point was, we put forward an amendment to her legislation that would have stopped rapists and other sex criminals from exploiting gender self-ID, and these were shot down by Nicola Sturgeon.
You know, I've been there for all of the 25 years that the Parliament has been going, as has she. So I've witnessed her in operation. There's nothing there about her record, her promise to close the attainment gap, for example, which still persists. Nothing there about her responsibility with the NHS.
The full interview is broadcast here on STV at 7 o'clock this evening, ahead of the memoir being published on Thursday.
4 people have been taken to hospital after a serious crash involving an ambulance and a car in Murray. The crash happened on the A98 at Ardule near Buckie just before 7 o'clock this morning. 1 person was airlifted to Aberdeen, the remaining 3 were taken to Elgin. The road remains closed. A 46-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the death of another man in Aberdeen. 25-year-old Austin Ironside was found injured on the city's Skene Street on the 3rd of this month. He died in hospital 2 days later. Police say the investigation remains ongoing and they continue to follow positive lines of inquiry. Now, drivers over the age of 70 could soon have to pass an eye test every 3 years to keep their licence, under plans to be unveiled by the UK government. Drivers of all ages are also set to face tougher penalties for offences like not wearing a seatbelt and driving without insurance. Well, our Westminster correspondent Paris Gertsianis is here. What's behind the move, Paris?
Well, Andrea, there's growing concern at the trend in the number of injuries and fatalities on British roads. Roads in the UK have gotten considerably safer in previous decades, but over the past 15 years, the number of casualties has been creeping up again. And with people living longer, there's more older drivers on the roads than ever before, and that's who the UK government's focusing on. Currently, individuals can self-certify if they're fit to stay on the roads, but under these plans, over 70s would face an eye test every 3 years to keep their licence. Now, motoring groups say it's still young drivers and new drivers who are most at risk of getting into accidents. But these older people we spoke to in Edinburgh, current and former drivers among them, they backed the principle.
I would hope I would know when the time is right, but of course it's not that easy, is it? You want to carry on driving, I assume. I mean, I will be turning 70 in October, and I know my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be.
Are you a driver yourself?
Not anymore.
What was it that made you give up?
Well, you get older, felt the concentration wasn't as good, and I always hated driving, so it was a no-brainer.
I think as you get older, I mean, I got 78, and as I get older, I find myself not having the same reaction time as I did when I was your age.
These plans will be published in full in the autumn, and one detail that is yet to be fully clarified is whether they will include cognitive tests for older drivers to identify dementia. That's been the demand from the family of Xander Irvin, the toddler who was tragically killed in Edinburgh 5 years ago in a collision involving a 91-year-old driver who was later found to have undiagnosed dementia. Now, across the board, drivers are also facing the possibility of points on their licence for failing to buckle up, and we're expecting that the drink-drive limit in England and Wales will be lowered to match the limit in Scotland. And of course, in Scotland, the message from officials is that any alcohol, any drink, is too much to get behind the wheel.
Lots of changes planned then, Paris. Thank you. A pregnant female was among the pod of 23 pilot whales which became stranded in Orkney. The group was found dead on Sunday on the island of Sandy, the same island where a group of 77 pilot whales were stranded last summer. Well, Oliver's in the newsroom for us now, and it looks like they've been there a few days, Ollie.
That's right, Andrea. This pod was found yesterday, but those investigating the stranding say their bodies were already quite decomposed, so it's thought they'd become stuck earlier in the week. It is still fairly early days in finding out exactly what's happened here, but tragically, all 23 whales have died, including one which we know was pregnant. While investigations are just starting, we do know that the whales appeared to be very healthy. They weren't underweight, and early assessments would show that none of the animals were showing any signs of injury or disease.
In many ways, a lot of the work that we do here is about looking at all of the things that could potentially have caused a problem. Assessing to see whether or not they did in this particular case, and then making a call as to, whether or not there is anything left that could have potentially been there that we might not be able to assess from the pathology or the diagnostic samples we have.
Now, as you said, Andrea, there was a similar stranding last year on the same island where 77 pilot whales were found last July. Pilot whales' normal habitat is much, much deeper waters. So while we know that they are sometimes seen around the coast of Scotland, we don't really know why that happens. Experts say that can be for a variety of reasons. It's thought these ones will be left to decompose naturally on the beach on Sandy, and the reason for this stranding might never really be understood. Andrea.
Yeah, it's a sad sight indeed, Oliver. Thank you very much for that. Police are investigating an assault on a Hearts player during yesterday's match against Dundee United at Tannadice. A lighter was thrown from the George Fox stand and hit a member of the visiting team. He wasn't injured. The incident, which happened around 4:40, has been described by police as unacceptable and reckless. Inquiries are ongoing, and anyone who saw what happened is being asked to come forward. A dire warning has been sounded about the financial health of Scotland's hospitality sector. The Scottish Licensed Trade Association says 70% of businesses they've surveyed this summer are in decline or considering closure, and the outlook is brutal. It follows the loss last month of 10 Brewdog pubs in the UK, including in Dundee. Susan Nicholson reports.
Little more than 2 weeks ago, this building in Dundee city centre was part of Brewdog's pub empire. Now stripped bare, it was one of 10 to close across the UK, with the brewing giant citing ongoing industry pressures. Across the hospitality sector, businesses are struggling. The Scottish Licensed Trade Association said today that the outlook is brutal. Its latest survey of 350 premises found 70% in decline or considering closure, and almost 60% expecting to make a loss this year.
We've navigated through COVID, Brexit, the increase in the cost of living, and all the problems we have with staff and so on. And things have actually got worse. And for many, the last budget, where we saw the increase in national insurance and also the increase in the minimum wage, was the last straw for many. Instead of getting something to help businesses survive, we were hit with that. And a staggering 90% of those surveyed thought that the Westminster and the Holyrood government were doing nothing to help our businesses.
Jamie Scott runs a string of bakeries in Fife and Dundee, having quit the restaurant trade earlier this year. He still works with hotel and hospitality businesses and believes the pressures are worse than the SLTA report suggests.
I've got lots of connections within the restaurant industry that are doing well, that are still not showing much profit, and other ones that are doing what they can, working as hard as they've never had before, pre-COVID times, and it's just not getting anything. I think significant things have to improve massively. For example, the VAT, the 20% is just, it's not feasible for what we're doing. We're the highest in Europe, I believe, and it's maybe the second highest in Europe, and it's just, there's no support there from the government.
The Scottish Government say they're providing rates relief of 40% for eligible hospitality businesses and more under the Small Businesses Bonus Relief Scheme. The UK Government claims business confidence is the highest in 10 years. In the pubs, clubs and restaurants, there's a determination to battle on. But for some, it will be last orders, as the financial pressures become too much to bear. Susan Nicholson, STV News.
A Fife Paralympic champion has set another world record in the 1500 metres. Ben Sandilands, who won gold in Paris last summer, clocked under 3 minutes and 45 seconds at a meet in Manchester. The 22-year-old, who has autism and dyspraxia, set his previous record on his way to Paralympic glory last year. A member of Fife Athletic Club, Ben is known for his devastating sprint finishes. A fantastic achievement. New historic protection has been granted for Scapa Flow off the coast of Orkney. It'll be classed a historic marine protected area from November, a legal designation to preserve the most significant wreck sites for future generations. The site has received the classification alongside the Queen of Sweden shipwreck off Shetland. Now, it was a vital World War II link between Shetland and occupied Norway. A new memorial commemorating the so-called Shetland bus operation, which helped the resistance operation, has been unveiled in Scalloway. The boats carried troops and supplies across the North Sea, as Finlay Jack reports.
More than 80 years on, a memorial to mark the journey made by the so-called Shetland bus during the Second World War. The newly renovated Prince Olav slipway was once used to repair boats during the operation. The first boat on the slipway during the war was from the Norwegian town Øygarden.
I think it's really touching. The people of Shetland, the people of Scalloway, the way they kind of connected that in the war with Norwegians, but also when we are visiting every time, we really feel we have a common goal, we have a common society, and we also have a common destiny in the future.
These small wooden vessels made more than 200 journeys across the North Sea, often in the most treacherous of conditions. Ammunition and supplies were smuggled to occupied Norway, while refugees were brought to the safety of Shetland.
When the Shetland bus operation moved down to Scalloway from Luna in 1942, there was a need for a slip to repair the boats. So this slip was built very quickly. The heavy weather between Norway and Shetland in the winter time, it put a big strain on the hull of the boats.
The slipway is named after the then Crown Prince Olav of Norway, who visited Scalloway in 1942.
And it really strengthens the ties between Shetland and Norway, that kind of ongoing connection that we have across the North Sea, that same journey that the boats made, and it's important to maintain that and to celebrate it into the future.
Finlay Jack, STV News.
And Finlay's report takes us to the sport now with all the news. Here's Chris.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Thanks, Andrea. Good evening. Now, Aberdeen manager Jimmy Tilleen bemoaned a lack of quality in attacking areas and hinted that deals are close to bringing in striking reinforcements, with AC Milan forward Marko Lazetic expected to sign this week. Well, the Dons huffed and puffed, but Celtic's class ultimately told as they took all 3 points with relative ease at a Pittodrie encounter that didn't quite live up to its billing. The banner celebrating Aberdeen's Scottish Cup victory was a happy reminder for Dons fans that, on their day, they can best Celtic. Yesterday wasn't that day. A bright start showed a glimpse of what this Dons team could be, but the first 8 minutes was the high watermark in a game Celtic didn't really have to hit top gear to win. Adil Aushish was the best in red, closely followed by Aussie Nicholas Milanovic. But while they got the cheers, the jeers were reserved for another misfiring display from Don's number 9, Kusini Yengi, hooked 10 minutes into the second half. The big forward looked forlorn, and Tilleen says he needs help to flourish.
Every new player always needs time, but we also need to support our attackers better with more players. They are quite alone in these areas, but of course everybody has to take a step forward in our performance right now, and that's my job and my coaching staff job to help the players take this step, but we have work to do.
Celtic netted through Swede Benji Nygren, set up by Kieran Tierney. before a second-half second for the visitors. Rio Hatate with an exquisite finish into the top corner. Aberdeen came closest through French loanee Auchiche, and Tallinn reserved special praise for the attacking midfielder.
Adil has been really consistent inside the games. He has one level, and he has been consistent during the first minutes and the last minute. And he has this technical quality, but he also have this fighting spirit. So he has started the season in a good way, and it's just to keep working to get more and more players on a really high level.
The Dons hope to bring in another 4 players in the final 3 weeks of the transfer window, with perhaps the same number heading out the door. Before then, it's the trip to Morton and a Europa League playoff double-header. Patience, a virtue not many football fans possess, may be required. Well, elsewhere, Dundee manager Stephen Presley was rightly proud of his players after they drew 1-1 with Rangers at Ibrox. After Ryan Astley sent a fabulous looping header over Jack Butland to make it 1-0, they were well on course for their first victory at Rangers' home stadium in more than 2 decades. And with Rangers down to 10 men, Dundee's Dre Wright was harshly penalised for a coming together with the home side's Jedi Gassama, where it seemed on review that the attacker had manufactured the contact. Well, James Tavernier made no mistake levelling for a point apiece, but it was Dundee who took home all the plaudits. While at Tannadice, a super display by the home side to lead 2-1 at the break through an Ivan Dulcek double was undone in stoppage time. Hearts coming through to win 3-2 as United's Euro warriors tired.
Yeah, they showed a lot. You know, I said last week after the Hibernian game I saw green shoots. I saw further improvements today. But as I said to them through there, we're still on 1 point. You get relegated on 1 point. We've got so much work ahead of us, I can't tell you. That was a big step for the group. You know, it'll give the group a lot of confidence, but as I've said, it's still very early. We've still got huge improvements to make, but they should be exceptionally proud of themselves today.
I think for us, it's the manner of the goals that we concede that is the biggest sore point for us. You know, the penalty is needless. I think it's really clumsy. I think when you go to ground in that situation, you give the referee a decision to make, and you know, I don't think VAR are ever going to come in and turn that the other way. And then it's, you know, 2 corners where we don't do our jobs.
And United set to sign Julius Eskilsson from Haugesund in Norway. Now to golf, and Grant Forrest thought a video call being lined up with Donald Trump was a wind-up, describing it as bonkers. Well, the President of the United States congratulated Forrest after the Scott-claimed victory at the Nexo Championship at Trump International Links in Aberdeenshire yesterday. Well, Trump's invited Forrest to a game in America and also to the Oval Office. Here's Raman Bardwaj.
Well, I'll tell you what, I watched it, Sarah. And he is some player. I look forward to playing with him. In fact, I'll play with him tomorrow.
A video call to Grant Forrest that'll never be trumped.
Let's do it, Mr. President. I'm playing right now. I'm on a golf course, a beautiful one in Washington, D.C., Trump International, and I have very good players, but they're not like you, Grant.
And Sarah Malone, who's in charge up there, she was next to me, and she's got, you know, President Trump as a contact on her phone, like just presses FaceTime. I'm like, this has got to be a wind-up, but no, it wasn't. And he was standing there on the tee at his golf course. The most surreal experience of my life, I would say. I doubt anything will top that in terms of the wow factor. And then he also invited us to the Oval Office, which would be unreal as well. But yeah, who knows? Bonkers, really, and yeah. If I'm the first, then it's a great honour, really.
The video call was made after Forrest won the Nexo Championship by 4 shots, his first tour title in 4 years.
And Grant Forrest can celebrate.
The Scots' celebrations soon turned to shock when speaking with Trump, who loves his golf.
Even for his age, he still swings it pretty good and hits it all right. So depends how many shots I have to give him, and yeah, all that.
How many shots will you give him if you play?
I don't know. Probably whatever the Secret Service tell me I need to give him.
So watch this space. The man from West Lothian could be heading to Washington.
Forrest, Trump. I'll leave it there. Bye for now.
STV Sport. Sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
See what you did there, Chris. Very good. Time now for the weather. More sunshine on the way. Here's Sean.
Midday Mayan temples, followed by sunny afternoons on the sand. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. No, everybody doesn't like the heat, but it is going to turn a lot warmer the next couple of days. We could be looking at highs up to 25, 26 degrees in the next couple of days. Top temperatures peaking tomorrow and also on Wednesday. Top spots for us, as you can see, we're doing pretty well, especially further inland, so it is going to be very warm in the next couple of days. Temperatures tail off a wee bit into the weekend, but we'll still manage the high teens, low 20s, so still feeling nice enough in the sunshine, but yes, hot for the next few days. Now, overnight tonight, we'll hang on to dry weather, be cloud breaks as well. The temperatures for us actually staying on the higher side. I think in the centre of Dundee, temperatures probably going to hold about 16 through much of the night. That's 61 in Fahrenheit, so a warm night to come for some spots. Now, tomorrow the weather is dry, bright, sunshine. We could see a few showers sparking off. It looks as if they'll stay just to the south and east of us, though, across lights of the borders, but just a very, very small chance of a wee isolated one maybe cropping up in eastern parts of Fife. But for most of us tomorrow, it's just a dry, sunny day and very warm. Those temperatures up to 26, maybe even 27 in some spots. Another very warm day to come on Wednesday, although just a little bit of an onshore breeze could give us a wee bit of hair along the coast and slightly lower temperatures here. But for most of us, a fine day on Wednesday. A higher risk of some showers bubbling up on Thursday, and if you do catch a shower on Thursday, small risk they could be thundery as well. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, a reminder that, yes, just over 30 minutes' time, an exclusive interview will be shown here on STV with Nicola Sturgeon. Julie Etchingham explores the highs and the lows of a public and private life in politics.
From a string of election victories to fighting for her personal reputation, Scotland's first female First Minister could not have charted a more turbulent few years. In an exclusive TV interview ahead of the publication of her memoir, Nicola Sturgeon talks to me about the deeply personal and the political, about Alex Salmond, gender recognition reform, the day she was arrested, and how she's ready for a new chapter. That's Nicola Sturgeon, The Interview, a special programme here on STV at 7 p.m.
And that's it for tonight from the team here. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.